It was taken before your mom was born, and that was taken out on our house at Renton.
Was that your first house?
Yeah, it's one we built.
What year was that? Do you remember?
Well, we married in 1950, and this was 1951, 52. Actually, in 1952. Well, wait a minute. No, she was born in 51, so it'd have to be 1950.
Hmm. And I don't know that we've ever recorded the story of how you met Grandma. Would you be willing to talk about that?
Yeah, I met her because I was friends with a neighbor to Mildred and Earl in Tacoma, and she lived the next door house. And Mary Ann was a friend of hers, and she came to visit her, and I got acquainted with her, and we decided to go out on a double date. But Mark, because he was home from the service for a short period, so Mark and Mary Ann and I and Joanne all went out on a date. Well, it wasn't too long after that we heard from through Mark that Mary Ann was going to be graduating from nurses school, which I didn't know that, but he knew it. Because he had kept contact with her, and he wanted to go to the graduations. Well, I was having finals and everything at University of Puget Sound, and trying to work besides, and so I was sort of hesitating, and then I finally said, oh, okay. So we asked Joanne if she wanted to go to this graduation. She said no, and so Mark and I went, and we went to this. It was at a church in Portland. And after the ceremony and everything, Mary Ann talked to Peggy, and she said, why don't you go out with us tonight on a date? He says, oh, I don't think so. Well, who is it? You know, and she says, see, that's him over there. Oh, he's too short. And she didn't want to go.
Mm.
And Mary Ann talked to her some more, and she said, oh, okay. So we went out on a date that night, and that's how I met her.
And where did you go on your date?
Just all around. We went all around, and then we parked in a residential street, and Peggy and I talked all night.
Hmm.
And Mark and Mary Ann were sitting in the back. I don't know what was going on back there because I wasn't interested. But that's how I met her.
And then what did Grandma, I know Grandma is not here to tell us, but
she went back to her nursing home, or to the nurses' quarters, she told the girls, because I just met the guy I'm going to marry. They just laughed at her, and 5 weeks later we were married.
oh my goodness. And it was a secret, or everybody knew?
No, it was a secret. Had to be a secret because you couldn't be a student and be married. So we had to keep it out of the newspaper. And it was really a...
And her folks, you didn't tell any of your
Tell her
parents?
folks or my folks. And when my folks didn't know until Bid found my ring in my jeans, because I never wore it because I was afraid of getting electrocuted with a ring. You touch around, you're working around electricity, you don't want to have a ring on. So anyhow, I had it in my pocket, and she said, what's this ring for? I finally admitted that I was married.
And then when did you get married again?
And we got married by Judge Callahan in Portland. That was the first one. And then at the end of the summer, when she was through working in the hospital and everything, and got paid for working, because they didn't pay them earlier. Just that last 3 months they paid them. We went to Grants Pass, Oregon, actually to Rogue River, Evans Creek, and we were married there by a Presbyterian minister that Peggy had lived at their house in Ashland when she was going to school there. And
In a church or in a home? Where were you married?
It was in a house.
Mm-hmm.
They had a big house. They had, I don't know how many kids, 4 or 5 kids.
Wow.
And George Schumann was the pastor, Presbyterian pastor. And anyhow, and for my best man, I had Jim Corwin and down at Rogue River, because he lived just at Ashland, I think is where he lived. And anyhow, and he had been my roommate at Walla Walla.
Oh,
That's how
okay.
I got a hold of him.
So you had 2 best men?
Yeah, my first one was Dale Palmer, who was my cousin, and his wife came, Dale and Doris Palmer, and they'd been married, I think 1 year or 2 years, and he was my lifesaver.
Oh.
Because when I was going down there on my car froze up, the rear end froze up on the way into Portland.
Oh no.
And I called him, and he had it towed to his house and tore it down and put in a new gear in the rear end, because a tooth had broke off and got wedged in there, and so it locked it up. The wheels wouldn't turn at all. And he did all that in his front yard. That was so.
Wow.
And he was a fireman. Portland fireman.
And I guess the last part of the story I want to know is how did you feel about getting married to Grandma? What did you hope for, and what were you thinking about with marrying Grandma?
I was really struck with her after that first date. And the second week I went down there, I think that's when I proposed to her. It was that week. And Mary Ann, she accepted. She decided I was it, okay. And Mary Ann helped her get the license and everything in Portland. And they keep the new announcement out of the newspaper. That was the other problem. Yeah.
And how did you know that she was the right one?
Well, like I said, we talked all night. And I was impressed. And then when she went back to the nurse quarters, they had a reception area, parlor, and she played the piano for me. And I was really struck then. Yeah, she played it all from memory and everything.
Do you remember what she played?
Well, one of them was Claire de Lune, if you know what that is. And I can't even remember all the other ones she played.
Wow.
But
did you talk about having kids before you got married? Did you know if you wanted children?
We never talked about any of that stuff. We talked about family and, yeah.
Wow.
She was an only child. And I was impressed by her mind, her ability to talk about anything, you know. And she was a fair person. She wasn't a racist or anything, even though she had lived in the South. Yeah.
And how many years were you married?
We were married 66 years.
Wow. Do you have any advice for those who are married and that would like to have a happy 66 years of marriage? Is there anything you would say to people?
Just get along.
Yeah.
And remember that the other person has the likes and dislikes too. And don't be afraid to talk about it. And love the Lord. That's the only thing that you really need to do.
Thank you.